Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for what we promise is going to be a very exciting event. We titled it Government Aftershock, Bridging the Digital Divide in the COVID-19 Era, Shaping Central and Eastern European Perspective. This event is happening in the framework of Government Aftershock, which is organized by OECD. And we're very happy to partner for this event with our Austrian partner, Edelweiss Consulting. Today, more than 60 events are happening around the world. It's the second day of the high-level forum. And the event aims to help the governments to develop recommendations on how to better transition to the government that is better suited for digital realities after everything we had to go through during the pandemic. This event aims at providing a unique reflection from the Central European region on three key questions. First one is, which policies and government strategies no longer fit with the world we're heading into? Or basically, which policies do we need to leave behind? Second question is, which policies or government approaches have proven themselves COVID-proof and will be still relevant? Which means, which policies do we want to keep? And third, what should we do differently in the area of digitalization policy in the region? Government aftershock conversations are an opportunity for the world to reflect on the implications of COVID-19 crisis and what we can learn and do differently as we prepare for and respond to future crises. For this hour of discussion, I have a fantastic lineup of speakers with me. We have Ingrid Brodskova, who is State Secretary of the Slovak Foreign and European Affairs Ministry, but spent a lot of time as permanent representative and ambassador plenipotentiary of the Slovak Republic, including in the OECD, who is organizing this series of events with us today.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, we lost our host, I think.
We need to wait a little. Oh.
I'm sorry, I think I was cut off.
Yeah, for 10 seconds, yeah.
I apologize for that. So I'll go back to the great speakers who patiently been waiting for me. So we have with us State Secretary Brodskova, who is currently State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs of Slovakia and spent a lot of time as ambassador of Slovakia to OECD. We also have with us Robert Kroplewski, who is plenipotentiary of the Minister of Digital Affairs for Information in Poland. But also Mr. Kroplewski has specialized in electronic media, convergence and social communication tools for many, many years and has a wealth of experience. We have with us today also Professor Žiga Turk, who is currently working at the University of Ljubljana in Slovenia, but previously has been twice the minister at the Slovenian government, Minister for Growth, as well as also Minister of Education, Science, Culture and Sports. We also have with us Christoph Schubert, who is currently President of the Management Board, NCBR Investment Fund, and former State Secretary of Poland. And we also have with us Anne Numa, who is joining us from Estonia and works as Digital Transformation Advisor at Estonia Briefing Center, where she focuses on explaining the Estonian digitalization experience and thus inspire leaders and decision makers. So I will go straightforwardly to our speakers and ask for your reflections on the three questions that we are going to address today. And I would be happy to start with State Secretary Brodskova.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. This is really symbolic. We today celebrate the anniversary of the Velvet Revolution, and digital transition is a very good topic to be discussed because it's a continuous task for all of our countries, for all of our societies, and symbolically, for the second reason, the last year Slovakia was the presidency of had the presidency in the OECD, and our topic was the digital transition, harnessing digital transition for sustainable development, sustainable growth. And that time we didn't know that how quickly we would have to proceed with certain measures because COVID obviously has changed a lot how we work, how we function, and this situation is really proof that the digital transformation has to be accelerated and and this agenda is relevant for all of us. Let me start with some statistics about the Central and Eastern Europe based on the McKinsey Digital Challenges in the Next Normal in Central and Eastern Europe, which was published in October 2020, because I find some very interesting figures in this publication. In 2017 and 2019, the digital economy in Central and Eastern Europe, which means Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Croatia, Slovakia, Hungary, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Slovenia, and Romania, group called also as the Digital Challengers, grew by almost 8% a year, much higher than the pace of change in the largest 5 economies of Europe, of so-called Big Five: France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and the UK. In 2019, the digital economy of Central and Eastern Europe reached 94 billion euros, and it is expected to reach 136 billion euros in 2025. During the first months of the COVID-19 lockdowns, the digital economy in Central and Eastern Europe accelerated, and the rate of growth from January to May 2020 at 14.2% was almost twice as high as the year-on-year change observed in period 2017 and 19, which was at the level 7.8%. 3 out of 4 people in Central and Eastern Europe are now digitally engaged, and Central and Eastern Europe continues to enjoy high-quality digital infrastructure. For instance, more than 92% of populated areas are covered by 4G, and the share of fiber optic broadband has increased by 47%, overtaking the Big Five. Connectivity is also largely available in the Central and Eastern Europe. The year of 2019 marked yet another record year for technology investment in Central and Eastern Europe, with almost 1.5 billion euros in venture capital attracted to the region, more than 5 times the level in 2015, and more than the Big Five and digital frontrunners in terms of growth and of venture capital. However, Central and Eastern European countries remain vastly underinvested. In the period 2013 and 20, which was the European budget, investment per capita was 8 times smaller than in the Big Five and 13 times smaller than in the digital frontrunners. I just felt that it would be good to set the scene for discussion where the Central and Eastern European countries and economies are placed. So maybe I would highlight, to be short and to have to give the space, to give the room for everybody. I would like to highlight some messages that what we need to keep from the period before the COVID. And for sure, we need to keep evidence-based policy making, because this crisis has highlighted crucial role of science, data, and evidence as a basis for policy making. And I would say that professionalism is back in fashion. Governments are really under public pressure to make decisions backed by relevant expertise and evidence. Second, what we need to keep is also the public-private partnership. We need to be focused on longer and mission-oriented public-private partners. The projects around big areas such as climate change, industrialization policy, digital transition, and tend to be or indeed large-scale digitalization tend to more successful according to data than short-sighted projects. Third, policy making that is inherently outcome and mission driven, which means as opposed to process driven. What we need to also do, what we need to keep is the collective responsibility for global challenges. We should remain committed to global initiatives, including the UN Agenda 2030, leaving no one behind. Again, piece of statistics, according to a report released by the UN Universities World Institute for Development Economics Research on the estimated impact of the COVID-19 crisis on global poverty, which could increase for the first time since 1990. The COVID-19 crisis should lead to 400 million new poor living under 1.9 US dollar per day and potentially take extreme poverty back by over 1 billion people. These numbers represent a reversal of 20, 30 years in global poverty reduction and put really the agenda of social sustainable development goals on no poverty and zero hunger under considerable threat. Another point, intergenerational responsibility. Communication. Policymakers really should keep telling the truth, should communicate better with the population, and the communication should be visible, transparent, and lead to really to have certain empathy. What we should do differently, maybe I will leave the room for others to speak, and then I would be more than happy to respond to those two other questions, that what we should leave behind and what we should do differently in area of digitalization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, State Secretary. I have already a list of things that we need to keep, and I'm sure it will be growing during the discussion. And I will go next to Mr. Robert Kroplewski for his reflection on the issues.
Thank you for giving me the floor, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for introduction, Mrs. Ingrid. We found the three good questions: what we can leave behind, what is worth to keep, and how future could we shape. And from our Polish perspective, fortunately, maybe with Mr. Krzysztof, many years ago, we worked about how to create the agile and flexible governance of our government. And now we have a good result of our work because our Minister of Digital Affairs is located in the Chancellery of Prime Minister, and finally is that person. It's a new situation for us that we stopped to think silosly, like between silos, and we have a good coordination center. And this is it was the work of our past, but the result is now. It is very worth to mention that Krzysztof was one of the actor and influencer of that kind of idea. And from our perspective, the COVID-19 don't allow us to leave nobody behind or nothing behind. What is important for our society and for our values. It is very important. If we focus on some values, we need to empower the values and try to realize it. For example, if you live in Europe, our cultural diversity is very important. If we live in Europe, if we talk about the single market, our local ambitious from the economic perspective are also important. And because of that, it is worth to maybe not create a joke, but to change the memo about the COVID and try to establish COV-IT, means coefficient evidency. of something. We need to convert our perception of COVID, because since many of last months, we tried to fight with invisible something. And the digitalization is also like that. We don't know how the invisible asset works. And the future, on our opinion, rather belongs to the coordination of invisible assets, especially if we talk about artificial intelligence. But it is great that we talk in that forum, and we can meet together in front of that webinar. The cross-border cooperation is a key in the future, because especially if we talk about the broadband and the connectivity, but more important is to create some trusted European or Central European data space to empower people of the developing of algorithms and artificial intelligence, for example. Why? Because our region is very huge level playing field, and because of that and because of the coordination, we can create our economy better, and we can create the circumstances and many occasions to cooperation, and for us, future rather belongs to the good coordination among international actors. We call that new situation like an answer for globalization, interlocalism. This is a new concept, especially in the digital space. If we have a virtualized market, virtualized our relations, we have a new neighbors, we have a new possibilities, especially, for example, in Europe, living in Europe, we can have no borders in front of Japan, in front of Brazil. That is new possibilities, our chance to get the COVID time. But the most important thing is how to empower people in trust to government, in trust to technology, in trust to the economic chance. On our opinion, this is the nearest months belongs to that challenges. If we talk about trust in technology, of course, if we use some smartphones to check our situation with COVID, this is a question about data, personal data, privacy. Not so much government implemented this trusted mechanism to check our situation. Rather, they try to only process data, personal data, and create the governmental repository of that. But our inventors put on the market good technology with new shaped on a new idea and new aim. And this is also very important, that any technology, artificial intelligence algorithms, could support and empower people if the aim of the modeling of that technology is focused on the human-centric approach, for example, for our values and our needs. It's good to live not presently, but to dream about future, because some people talk about new normal, but new normal is also a risky direction if we don't engage the good aim for designing technology. Rather, better to dream about backing to old normal and be smart in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for highlighting important fundamental issues like building up trust, but also being smart, regardless of whether we're talking about the new normal or the realistic present. And a small announcement for our participants: we're going to do a quick survey to gather also the audience opinion, and you will see soon the question that's gonna pop up. You should be seeing it on the screens now, so please click on your answers and submit your opinion on the matter. And the question is, do you think that COVID-19 is making governments take a more proactive approach to complex challenges that are arising in society? And we will see the outcome soon. And for now, I'm going to go to our next speaker, and I would like to go to Professor Turk for his reflections.
Hello, greetings from Ljubljana. So here in the background is a report we did recently with Atlantic Council, actually on the same issue, on the issue of digitalization in the Central and Eastern Europe. And to begin with, I think on one hand, it's a little bit funny or absurd to speak about a region when you speak about digital policies, because as we know, in digital, there are no borders. It's the distance of New Zealand or of Slovakia from Slovenia is roughly the same, digitally speaking. And yet, there are some things that ties this space together. There are cultural, political, and economic similarities. I think culturally, this is what we like to call and what we love the Mitteleuropa. It's the cafes that you have in Vienna or in Prague or in Bratislava or in Ljubljana. It's all the same. I would not say this is multicultural, but it's definitely multinational because the culture is still very similar within the Central and Eastern Europe. Politically, we have a similar experience with the totalitarian past. Therefore, we have probably more sensitivity to human rights, to freedom of expression. Also more doubt towards central planning. And economically, I think our common goal is to catch up with the rest of the EU. Countries like Slovenia, Czech Republic, Slovakia, parts of Poland have been on par as developed as Western Europe before the Second World War, and we are still catching up. So closing the gap is a policy, and there are some good fundamentals for that. Some of that were already mentioned by Minister Brodskova. There's good STEM education everywhere. There is quite often, new high-performance infrastructure, fiber optics, 4G, and so on. On the negative side, there is a lack of entrepreneurial mindset and ecosystem, and there is a problem with the size of the home market. So one kind of political priority that has to be strengthened. I would not see this COVID, as a kind of a major break in the continuity of policies, but some should be strengthened, some should be weakened. Functioning single market is definitely a high priority. The region does not want to be held back with protectionism of someone's digital or media champions. We want to push forward the global state of the art and using whatever best tools are there on the market, not necessarily working towards, digital sovereignty of Slovenia, because we are too small for something like that. I don't think we can plan in which areas we can achieve this, let's say, global competitiveness, but definitely niches will appear. For example, in Slovenia, there is a niche that has always been a kind of in the government programs on artificial intelligence, and now we have a UNESCO center for that in Ljubljana. But on the other hand, there has been Bitcoin, for which government did nothing. It simply happened in the grassroots community of programmers and digital entrepreneurs, etc. And we are also quite big in that one. Strategically, I think we need a free and open internet, as it has been pioneered in the West. About the future of internet is, one future is balkanized into European and American and everybody else and the Chinese. The other is Chinese plus the rest. And I think that we should work towards an internet where if China wants to have its own, okay, or world one, okay, but we should definitely have a common regulatory and otherwise organized internet with United States, Canada, the rest of the Western world. The common dangers are brain drain, protectionism, dirigism, as I said. I think brain drain is a problem for Central and Eastern Europe. A lot of our young people are simply using the mechanisms that are in place, including Erasmus, to set bases elsewhere and simply move. And with respect to that, also with respect to protectionism and dirigism, we could speak a little bit more with one voice when it comes to Brussels. As to your questions, to keep, definitely COVID accelerated a lot of trends in distance learning, in internet shopping. There was this just do it approach. You had to do it. We did probably more for digitalization of several areas, of several topics. Because of COVID, without any planning, without any government control. It happened spontaneously, it happened kind of bottom up. There was a lot of red tape that was cut. A lot of e-commerce appeared, e-law, e-government. It was suddenly possible, to file a lot of the stuff electronically, which was unheard of before, and we should definitely keep that. We should do a few things differently. COVID did slow this brain drain. A lot of people that were thinking of moving abroad now work globally from their homes, from their home offices, from Slovenia. They work to the rest at a distance and collaborate with the rest of the world without moving. And I think this is important that we keep our smart people at home. And to leave behind, or as a kind of, I think, major opportunity that we did not use with respect to digital to address COVID, I think a little bit in related, I think I could agree with what Mr. Kroplewski was just saying. We did not use technology to address COVID. And this is not an issue with Central and Eastern Europe. I think the entire West has missed the opportunity to use technology in a way which would be in accordance with privacy and with human rights, but not, being shooting yourself in the foot with being too strict or too purist about that. Technology could do a lot to trace contacts, to isolate, outbursts, and we have been hardly scratching the surface with that. So with that, I would conclude.
Thank you so much, Professor, for highlighting what, after your reflection, seems the obvious, but we haven't been doing, just using the opportunity that COVID itself creates, and we just need to go with the flow and jump on them. Thank you very much for that. And I want to pull up the outcomes of the first questions. Can we get them on the screen, please? Participants in general think that, yes, the governments are taking a proactive approach, but there is also a sensible feeling of skepticism about whether this is extended to all areas, or we're just limiting ourselves to what is absolutely necessary during COVID, or just follow our political priorities. So this is another point that we could work on to change in the future. And with that, I would like to go next to Annette for the famous Estonian Perspectives.
So hello to everyone from a beautiful city of Tallinn here. And first of all, thanks for having me in this panel. I absolutely love the topic of this here, and it's always a pleasure to attend different events organized by Globsec. And thanks for also all the other panelists for your great ideas and thoughts on this topic as well here. Now to get straight to the topic side here. So I think the time of the pandemic here was pretty much like a wake-up call for each of our state here, and made us to consider so many of our policies across the world. And I think in a way that if we wanted to continue life in a normally, then we all realized that digital solutions are here to help and are here to stay. And from my sense of view here, I would actually take a more positive approach to this topic here and say that we can't waste the crisis. I'm saying that once again, we can't waste the crisis, and we have to be as fast as possible, not to miss the right time here. Because what we see all across the world right now is that many governments who have been just thinking that having digital solutions was maybe something cool to have, are now realizing and hoping that they were more ready for the crisis. And I mean, yes, it's hard to believe that you can be ready for the crisis, but I mean, being digitally ready for the crisis. And this is what we have seen, especially from so many states that are currently struggling because they were postponing these decisions to make things working online. And now that's the only way to actually handle what's happening around us here. So I thankfully hear that we also need much stronger cooperation over the European Union. And especially I would point out the healthcare sector here, because this is missing the most. Because when we even have free movement of all across the European Union, then I still struggle thinking like in a way that if we move from one country to another, our medical records are not coming with us. So this is just one example of one of the sectors. I mean, there are so many other things that we have a free movement, but when we go to another country, we are like a blank space. So no one knows anything about us. And I think that shows exactly that why do we need to have much better data exchange like all across the European Union. And that's what our politicians should be focusing on mostly right now as well. But around the globe, I'm pretty sure that people are searching for innovative ideas to tackle the problems created by the COVID-19 pandemic, and countries are scrambling to find solutions to, first of all, combat the looming of economic crisis, first of all, and then, of course, also manage the entire pressure on our medical system, and all while trying to make sure that we can continue life as normally as possible. But just one example that what we decided to do here in Estonia was that on the same day that we announced back in March the state of emergency, we also organized together with the help of Estonian Ministry of Economics and Economic Affairs and Communication a fully online hackathon. So again, to also work fully together with our private sectors. I was very happy when Mrs. Rokova also mentioned the PPP model, so the private-public partnership, and this is what we should continue to do, and not only with the private sector, but always include academia also in the process of finding the best solutions. So I fully think in a way that we should, whenever our politicians are making decisions, they should be consulting everything with academia and the private sector, because that's where the great ideas are coming. And I do hope that in the future, what we learn from that is that we will now in the future continue to do and make decisions with the help from the private sector and academia as well. But I will also bring up one example, maybe to also see what we should be changing and what could be leaving behind here is about the educational policy. So we already have had the school managing platforms being used in high schools for around, I think it's like 14, 15 years, but still we were struggling because our teachers were not pretty much like prepared to do these kind of online courses and like organizing their different like classes online. So I think, again, that was a great example for us that where now we should be focusing more on educating also our people that are working in schools, for example, and of course in so many other sectors as well. And maybe in the future, if you would think about that, some kids can't go to school sometimes, and the same goes for right now that we have a chance to work remotely. So I guess we shouldn't be rushing back to the old normality, but we should be creating the new normality where also kids have chances to stay at home whenever they, let's say, their parents are traveling somewhere or because of their work. There are so many reasons for that. So we should be more flexible in the future, and we shouldn't really be rushing back to the old normality in that sense, because we also, for example, when the kids wanted to apply for the universities, then we also started using an application called Verif, where everyone could verify themselves on the phone with their ID cards and everything. And I wish that also in the future we will have these kind of chances if you can't make a physical visit somewhere. So I guess a lot of things are going to change in this aspect. And once again, as a last note, I would point it out a thing that was brought out before as well, that the PPP model has to stay there. And this is what we should be mostly focusing on in each sector. And I'm not only talking about the healthcare or the educational sector, but all the other ones as well here.
Thank you so much, Ned, for the great examples and also for helping us embrace the new normal, which might be even better than the old normal if only we're brave enough to implement it. And with that, I'm going to briefly pull up a next question that we have for the poll. And the question is, what do you think is the most important principle or characteristic for governments to embrace to ensure future success? And you can do multiple choices here. And we will see the results later. And for now, I'm going to Krzysztof Schubert for his perspectives.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it's a great pleasure for me to be here with you and discuss the digital divide in the COVID-19 and shaping Central and Eastern European perspective. Actually, when preparing for this panel, three issues resonated the most from my perspective. So first one, the digital technologies. Most of you mentioned that, of course. Second one, financial side. And I was very happy to hear that Minister Broćkova has mentioned venture capital in the first intervention. And the third one is more strategic perspective for the future. And I will cover that in a couple of moments. So starting from the digital transformation. So I will start with the comment that COVID-19 has demonstrated the importance of digital technologies, which allows business, government, and people life to continue as usual. So it was pretty clear that we had this situation. It is clear as well that we can potentially use innovative digital technologies and financial mechanisms in the pandemic response. So these two issues which I mentioned in the first word, like digital technologies, financial side, from my perspective, is really important for the future and really be focused on that. I think that most of the governments realize that already, and they will put the digital transformation much higher on the agenda, which is very good compared to the bad situation we have with the pandemic right now. But I think that it might be a very good also move from their perspective. Few words on the financial side. So basically, without financial side, without investment and funds, there will be no digital transformation. So there is quite a few funds which we have right now on the European level. So I will mention maybe two, like Digital Europe for 21-27, which is around 9 billion euro. There is still discussion on the number because of this recovery fund, but this is that level, basically from the areas you have mentioned already in your actually interventions, like high power computing, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and skills. Yeah, the digital skills are going to be one of the most important assets for the future. And the second very important fund is a New Horizon Europe for the same time frame, which is now around 8 billion euro. And what I see also from my European colleagues, that we as Central Eastern Europe, we are not doing very well in Horizon Europe. So this is something which we should really put on our tables and work together how to change this situation. There is, of course, quite a few more funds and quite a lot of funds generated or implemented on the member state level. But I will mention again, in my opinion, the very important is venture capital funds. So especially the ones which are focused on SMEs in growth and expansion stage. Not because last years we had, especially in Poland, what I can see from our market, but also from Europe, a big trend and a lot of focus on SMEs in the startup phase, which is great, but now they need a little bit different funding to move to the next stage. If we would like really to build bigger companies in Central Eastern Europe, we have to really be sure that we are preparing for them appropriate funds. Such the lack of investment, in my opinion, lack of investment capital may soon become a major issue for SMEs across Europe. And having in mind that 60% of innovation is within digital sphere and segment, this is really important area to address. And the third point, which I would like to spend a few moments on, is a strategic and horizontal perspective, especially for Eastern Europe. So I will just mention a few areas and maybe we will discuss them later on more in details. I will start with the political formats we have in place, like Visegrad, Visegrad Plus, or 3Cs initiative. Actually, I think that on the background of the professor opening speech, there was like a 3 C's more or less on the Atlantic Council report. So this is very important area to really develop. We had a lot of discussions on the political level last year, but now is a good and very good time to really move to the concrete projects and maybe the projects from the digital space. The important is that very likely, this is not maybe very official, but what I understood from my colleagues from European Commission, that 1/3 of the funds from the EU Recovery Fund, which is 750 billion, will go, 1/3 will go to the Central Eastern Europe. So there will be a lot of money to really access, and the discussion will be how we will spend them in the most effective way. Also is a good number to mention, 150 billion euro for digital transformation in Europe as a whole. So as you know, the commissioner or the commissioner von der Leyen, she mentioned already that she will expect like next 10 years like a digital decade. So we are really in the very good moment to discuss that and to really change our perspective. And two other points which I would like to make, if we look at the DESI, which is Digital Economy Society Index, in general, Central Eastern Europe, we are not a leader in digitalization. Maybe except Estonia, which is a good example in a couple of areas, but there is still a lot of room for improvement in general for this region. And recovering economies after COVID-19 crisis, in my opinion, provides an opportunity to strengthen strategic sector as well as mentioned political formats. So this is a really good moment to work cross-border, to really develop and really use the formats we have already in place, because they've been already more on the political level, but now there is a very good time for implementation. And I think this is true for all the sectors, not only maybe digital sectors, but all of the sectors which we have in our economy. They are touched by digital transformation. And this is something which we have to keep in mind and maybe spend a few moments later on during our discussion. So I will stop at that moment and thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Krzysztof, for also highlighting the two-legged approach for financing, one based on the governmental or intergovernmental funds and another one on venture capital. I do hope that there will be EU funds to spend in the end, and the current impasse will be overcome. But if that's not happening, I'm afraid we'll have to rely on the venture capital, which is, as you rightly pointed out, not necessarily particularly developed in the region, and we will have to focus on it immediately. And with that, I would like to pull up the outcomes of the previous question. And most of the participants think that we do still lack leadership in embracing future successes. But interestingly, only 1/3 of participants think that we're lacking resources, which probably reflects on what Krzysztof was talking about, that there is plenty of money currently floating around. We just need to channel them wisely. Thank you very much for everybody for these initial remarks. And we can now follow up with some of the questions that were raised earlier. And I would like to go back to State Secretary Brodkova for her reflections on what other speakers were saying. But State Secretary, one additional question for you is that we were discussing that COVID-19 by itself provides this opportunity or the offer that we cannot refuse in terms of enforced digitalization, simply because we do not have choice and we can no longer postpone these decisions. My question to you also, from where you sit, isn't it too much for the governments to embrace at the same time? Because we have the priority of digitalization, we have a lot of other priorities, including the immediate health crisis. Do you think the governments do have capacities at this moment to implement all the necessary policies? You're muted.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say that all of these countries have really historical opportunity again, that we are all members of the European Union, and the Recovery and Resilience Facility funds should be used to proceed with digitalization extensively and rapidly. It is really, again, as I used to say, every seventh year we have the historical opportunity, but this is really historical momentum, because the European Union has been able to generate the incredible amount of money and financing, and we very much hope that all of these countries will have the opportunity and capacity to implement the transformation of the society to greater efficiency, productivity, and resilience. But as it has been said, many of these challenges, like need for digital transition, environmental challenges, migration, all of these trends or mega trends have been evident already before the COVID crisis, and so COVID crisis has only accelerated the need to react quickly and rapidly, and hopefully all of these countries will have the capacity, because the question of the task for these countries is really to catch up still with some EU members economically. When you ask the question about the capacity of the government, Slovakia is really in a little bit in a special situation compared to other countries in the region, because we have the new government since February this year. So the new government came into the power in a very difficult, challenging, unprecedented time, because the COVID crisis has started and the new government assumed their responsibility. But so obviously the COVID-19 crisis has occupied the capacity of the government very much. But what I find as very important is really the leadership and communication. So, and as I said in my introductory remarks, that now again it is the time for professionalism, and really the professionalism is back in fashion, in a sense that the evidence-based policy making, especially in the crisis like this, is necessary, because all of the steps of the government need to be taken on the basis of science, data, and evidence, and then it is much easier for the government to build the trust for and support for steps which have been taken and which are going to be taken to fight the COVID-19.
Thank you so much, State Secretary. Indeed, Slovak government had baptism by fire in the past many months, which we're sure will only help them come out of it stronger. Thank you also for your remarks. And I would like also to follow up with Professor Turk a little bit on the report that you were doing with the Atlantic Council, but also connected to what Christoph was talking about in terms of the regional cooperation and the need to move to the specific projects that would link the countries together. Could you please elaborate a little bit more on how we can strengthen the cross-regional cooperation in this regard?
We talked a lot about cross-regional collaboration in the group. And as I said in the beginning, you know that geographic proximity does not really play any role here, but common interests do. And the idea that is in that report is that perhaps all these countries could set aside a very small amount of that recovery fund that is otherwise aimed at anything, but which is also aimed at digital, to set aside each country a very small amount of that money to coordinate their policies and maybe find, so to set up collaborations. Both collaborations project-based in developing something, and collaborations on the, let's say, European stage to push European digital policies in the direction which these countries sees as important. But if I may, a few comments on the on what has been said about what governments can do and what opportunities this crisis is bringing. In Slovenia, two new government was put in place actually days before the March lockdown. And yeah, events like that are a challenge for everyone, for the governments, for the private sector, for the individuals, for the countries. And they actually show who is up to the challenge and who is not up to the challenge. Not just the government, but maybe also nations as a whole. Can they pull together? Can they be responsible or not? Annette was saying that one cannot let a good crisis go to waste. And indeed, these are extraordinary times. They call for extraordinary policies. And also extraordinary policies are possible. It is possible to do things which would be unimaginable in normal times. And let me just give an example. In Slovenia, it's extremely complicated to allow working from home. Actually, if I want to work from home, somebody has to come to my home to check if I have everything safely installed and if I have the fire extinguisher and good lighting and all that. It's the employer who's responsible for that. So it's an incredible amount of red tape, and there's a lot of that in e-government and elsewhere. And some countries will take advantage of that and will get out of this crisis much more agile, much more digitized, much more flexible, and some countries will not. And this is up to the individual countries. It's not up to the European Union as a whole or to the United Nations, etc. Everybody is writing. I'm a professor at university. Everybody is writing right now a very selective exam.
Thank you so much, Professor. That goes back to what you were saying in the first interventions about the using COVID and the work from home situation as an opportunity to stop that brain drain in Central Europe. So indeed, we would need to reflect on a set of policy regulations, how to make it possible and not to stop it, but try to facilitate it. There was also a question from one of the participants about whether you think that digital disruption is a problem, inevitable change, or positive accelerator for improved digital society. And what I deduct from Professor's remarks is that it is a positive accelerator for improved digital society if you can deliver on it. And I would like to go now to Robert Kroplewski for your reflections, also on digital cooperation, but also on anything else that you would like to mention.
Thank you for the question. I really support that my previous colleagues mentioned the 3Cs initiatives, because this is one of great example how from the top level we can engage the bottom level. Of course, this is an initiative which try to link the 3Cs, and is maybe good to mention now that if from the historical point of view, we had an occasion to observe great organization like, for example, like Republic of Venice. That was a very small country, even organization, state organization, but that country explored many outside space located on the other seas. And this is good analogy to the digital cooperation, that we can have many points, many locations, many our partners located among in our region, and who cooperate permanently for our horizontal productivity, but also for the entrepreneur productivity. Our gap in our region, it's a lack of coordination. This is a very big problem. And if we talk about coordination, our governments, it is of course the key needs which stay in front of us. We can coordinate our governments on the 3Cs initiative forum, for example, but also in the other idea of any concept. If we talk about 3Cs initiative, we have three pillars: energy, infrastructure, and digitalization. And even using that third pillar and trying to create our ally in front of the recovery fund, for example, and our cooperation to get the money from that funds, we can use many types of technology which is related to the digital sphere, but also we can create the real environment of cooperation, for example, cross-border data space, what I tried to mention before. Finally, it is true that without concrete projects, any initiative will be empty, and we need to cooperate on the dedicated project. I have a little a piece of doubt about a private public partnership, because the idea is really great, but the enforcement of that idea in our region is still not enough, not satisfactory. And having this in regard, maybe I would like to try to underline the other sphere, not digital skills, because of course we have and we need to be well skilled from the digital perspective, but our future belongs to the universal education. We need to change our way to educate people in the COVID time, of course, but a way to educate people in front of technology. Because if we have an autonomous machine and some part of autonomy of artificial intelligence, and we have, on the other hand, the risk how to keep and how to empower the autonomy of people, this is the main challenge for in the future. And in the same moment, our region represents the creative class, and we have a strong capacity to engage that people for our economy, for our productivity. About the brain drain, it is, in my opinion, now very, of course, comfortable that we can sit in home and work, but that people on the larger set are engaged to the external value chains. Our region, our countries, our government need to create some environment to keep that people as actors who support and who create the productivity index in our region. If we allow that people to work for external actors, what is of course great, because we can take knowledge, but if we keep that situation as a permanent, it is a very risky for our economy, because the intellectual property and know-how could not work for our productivity. In my opinion, in our government, we try to create that kind of environment to keep the know-how and intellectual property very close to our entrepreneurs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Robert. We will run a few minutes over so that I can go to Krzysztof and Annette still. And Krzysztof, over to you. I'm very tempted to follow up on what Robert was saying, and we have a little discussion here about the feasibility of first private-public partnership. How much of it is you think is feasible to implement in the region? And also we had a question from a participant, which goes back to what Robert was saying about keeping the intellectual property or having our own producers here in the region. So the question from the participant is how to make sure that we have a proper balance between using the solutions that are already available on the market and are likely to be currently offered by the bigger companies that are not from the region versus stimulating the growth of the local suppliers.
Okay, so thank you for all those questions. So I would take the Robert question as well. Yes, if I'm right. So basically, I make a couple of notes which I would like to briefly go through. And first of all, with funds. So basically, what we see in Poland and probably is the same in the Central Eastern Europe, that public funds, they are very important part of most of the investments we have within the venture capital market at the moment. In Poland, is almost 60% of the funds we have on the market. They are backed up by different scenarios of putting public money into the market. So they are different mechanisms, different ways, but this is a very important factor. What I see also from my venture capital perspective at the moment, so that the pandemic stimulates innovation in most of the sectors. So this is really the change. I see a lot of projects which were probably, I would not expect them a year ago. They are now on the table and they are really with a big potential. And most of them, they are touching digital transformation from different perspectives, or e-health or pharmaceutical industry, but most of them, they are very interesting and they really need a lot of money, much more than in the past to really grow. One comment on regional cooperation, because we mentioned a few times that the 3Cs format. So I think that this is very important for some of the projects because of the geographical perspective, but this is also very important on the European level. I think that there is plenty of room on the European activity, I mean in Brussels, to be straight, that we can work together on different projects. Let's say I would call just a digital like-minded group. So this is like a group of informal countries which are thinking in the similar way in digital sphere. So this is something which we can really use, stimulate different discussions, or be maybe more effective addressing different issues at the European level. And one more comment on 3Cs again. There is already 3Cs fund implemented, and we actually, from Poland perspective, we allocated another 250 million euro last week. So this is really going to be really interesting and big fund, and it can be used in different scenarios in our region as well. One maybe short comment on education and skills, because it's getting to be also very important. So to be honest with you, it's a little bit personal maybe or private opinion. I'm not sure about the effective level of education after the pandemic. So because I see that at home, because my wife is a math professor, and I see that on daily basis what's going on and how smart the students are and getting smarter in different ways. So I'm not sure for the future when we will be like in the longer perspective. So this is also something which we have to put into the consideration. And maybe last comment, very serious, I think that the occurrence like COVID-19 could be seriously danger for the states from the security and economy perspective. So I think this is very important lesson we had, and we should really prepare for the, I would not say maybe similar situations in the future, but this is something which we have really rethink many times and really change the way we are building, or our strategic sectors are functioning, and they are depending on from different scenarios across the world or Europe. So that's my comments on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Krzysztof. And I will let Annette to wrap up us with the concluding remarks. There were a lot of points on public-private partnerships that I'm sure you'll pick up upon, but also the education issue.
Yeah, so there was a very good comment from Olivia coming as well there and asking what would be necessary in order to prepare the schools to be ready to tackle what has happened, and especially as there are kids, I guess everywhere, that don't have access to the computers or even internet. So this is a problem, and we have to admit that it also was a problem here. But just a good example, I guess again, I have to bring it out, the partnership side here. So we have to help each other. And what we see from the very positive view is that when the crisis happened, then usually our societies are pretty much like gathering together and actually trying to find solutions from each of the sides, so that we started an initiative here, so to provide computers to every single kid, and so everyone again at home who had computers that they didn't use currently could lend it to the kids that did not have one. And honestly, we see that it actually worked out, and then that was a great example. But of course, as I also answered to Olivia, we need to have a leadership, and leadership not only from the government side, but also in every organization, in every company, in every school. There has to be someone making decisions and making strict decisions, not just saying that guys, you should try and figure it out yourself. That's not going to work. We need to have a very strong decision-making part, and then things can easily work out as well.
Thank you so much, Annette. And with that, I would like to thank our speakers for the great conversation. We will summarize the points that you were making and convert them into our report for OECD for their inclusion into the policy recommendations for the governments. So thank you very much for being with us today. And for the participants, we're going to stay for breakout session discussions to further zoom in on particular issues. So with that, I would like to introduce Florian Weinberger, who is our partner from the Edelweiss Consulting, and who is going to lead us through the breakthrough sessions right after we play the video. Thank you very much to the speakers, and looking forward to see you with us again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Florian, and I think we're all yours now.
Thank you very much, and a warm welcome from Vienna. We're glad to cooperate with GlobeSec on this event, and thank you, Elena, and thank you to this amazing panel for the great discussion. As it was mentioned, we're now heading to our breakout groups, and there discuss in deep the three topics: education, future of work, and healthcare. The system will automatically transfer you to the breakout rooms, and there you will meet just in a second your hosts.